In the heart of Europe, nestled amidst the towering peaks of the High Tatras, exists a nation of profound beauty and intriguing heritage, Slovakia. A land of awe-inspiring landscapes and pulsating culture, Slovakia holds a distinct and complex political history. On January 1, 1993, Slovakia arose as a sovereign state, severing its links with Czechoslovakia and embarking on an independent journey. A new nation was birthed on that day, but this independence was not without a cost. The transition encapsulated a period of intense struggle and turmoil, akin to growing pains. It was far from a smooth sail, as the nation was forced to steer itself through the stormy seas of political and democratic principles. As we plunge into the narrative of the 1997 Slovak Referendum, we must first comprehend the turbulent political climate that laid the groundwork for this pivotal moment in Slovak history. In the tumultuous epoch of the 1990s, Slovakia, still grappling with the legacy of corruption and uncertainty from the communist era, was swept up in a political maelstrom. The pivotal moment came in 1993, when, carrying the weight of its troubled past, Slovakia forcefully severed its bonds with Czechoslovakia, stepping into the realm of independence. This newborn nation was thrown into a fierce battle to carve out its political identity, a task made even more challenging by the leftover strains of the previous regime. Veiled under a facade of democratic principles, the nation was, however, teetering on the edge of a precipice, with heavy criticisms of authoritarian rule and rampant corruption clouding the reign of Prime Minister Vladimir Mečiar. His tenure, a continuation of the country's long-standing struggle with corruption and political uncertainty, was shrouded in a swirl of controversy, with allegations of despotism and insidious corruption gnawing at the very foundations of the fledgling. During the volatile years of the 90s, Slovakia found itself under intense scrutiny on the global stage. The Yugoslavia conflict, which surged into a crisis from 1992 to 1995, was a critical aspect of this spotlight. Slovakia, under the helm of Prime Minister Vladimir Mečiar starting from 1994, kept a neutral stance. It refused to get entangled in the bloody conflict that was tearing Yugoslavia apart. However, as the situation worsened by 1995, this neutrality was interpreted as implicit support for the Serb-dominated Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. This was a nation that was under the weight of international sanctions owing to grave human rights violations, thus staining Slovakia's neutrality with the hues of controversy. The global community stood divided on Slovakia's stance, the controversy infusing the nation with an undeniable tension. On one hand, Russian officials praised it as a bold and principled stand against interventionism, while on the other, U.S. diplomats saw it as veiled approval of the bloodshed and atrocities committed during the conflict. This stark contrast in opinions split the country's population, adding more turmoil to the already stormy political atmosphere. The debate and controversy surrounding Slovakia's involvement in the Yugoslavia conflict had a profound effect on their political landscape. Furthermore, Slovakia was grappling with an unsteady and corrupt government, a disheartening legacy left behind by the iron grip of communism. Under Mečiar's government, corruption seeped into every level, tainting the political fabric of the nation. This corruption, coupled with the government's uncertain stance on international issues, deepened the existing mistrust in Mečiar's government and threw into stark relief the country's struggle to define its role in international relations. The controversy and the associated bloodshed set the stage for the contentious 1997 referendum, as the citizens' faith in their government, represented by Mečiar and his corrupt cabinet, was at a rock bottom. The uncertainty and corruption, a bitter bequest from the communist era, along with the controversy surrounding Slovakia's involvement in the Yugoslavia conflict, added another layer of complexity to the political scenery, echoing the nation's struggle for democratic principles in a louder, more resonant. As the controversy of the Yugoslav conflict swirled, Slovakia found itself entangled in a struggle for competent leadership. The public's growing disillusionment with Prime Minister Vladimir Mečiar's government was palpable. The neutral stance on the Yugoslav conflict, seen by many as a tacit approval of the atrocities being committed, coupled with the rampant corruption, had eroded public trust in the government. Simultaneously, within the political sphere, a power struggle was brewing. Numerous political parties, each with their unique ideologies and promises of reform, were vying for control. The political landscape was fragmented, with no single party able to command a clear majority. This lack of unity and decisive leadership further added to the public's concerns. The Slovakian public was desperate for a change, yearning for a leader who could steer the nation towards stability and prosperity. Yet, the political instability and the lack of a clear alternative to Mečiar's government made this a daunting task. The citizens of Slovakia were caught in a conundrum, yearning for change, yet unsure where that change would come from. This struggle for competent leadership added another layer of complexity to the already tense political climate, setting the stage for the dramatic events that were to follow. The political flux, the controversial stand on international issues, and the desperate search for competent leadership. All these factors were converging to a boiling point, foreshadowing the tumultuous events of the 1997 referendum. In the blood-soaked tumult of the mid-1990s Yugoslavian conflict, Slovakia found itself rattled by a burgeoning, powerful opposition. The government's decision to remain on the sidelines had sparked a firestorm of public disputation, as a swelling body of citizens felt double-crossed by their leaders' passive acceptance of the atrocities being committed. This public outcry against Slovakia's apathy was not just a reaction to the war, but a potent symbol of a deep-seated dissatisfaction with the lingering legacy of corruption and uncertainty from the communist era that pervaded all levels of government. The opposition, fueled by the escalating conflict, demanded accountability from the decision-makers, their calls for justice resonating through the hallowed halls of power. This clamor was, in essence, for a transparent government, one that put its people's interests first and showcased courageous leaders who were not afraid to shoulder the consequences of their actions. The rising tide of opposition signaled a significant shift in public sentiment, underlining a pervasive thirst for responsibility and accountability. A stark testament to the growing disgruntlement with the government's handling of both internal and international affairs, this opposition would emerge as a game-changing force in the crucial 1997 referendum, revealing the political turbulence simmering beneath Slovakia's placid exterior. In 1997, a referendum of enormous implications happened in Slovakia, a vestige of its complex past, shadowed by the guise of communism. This was no ordinary nationwide vote, but rather posed four challenging queries to the Slovak populace, reflecting the unsure and corrupt nature of the government at all levels. The first question addressed Slovakia's potential membership in NATO, a significant step towards attaining global recognition, but laden with intricate political maneuvering. The second question, another attempt at political misdirection, centered around the transition from a centrally planned economy, an attribute inherited from the communist era, to a market economy, focusing on the method of privatization. The third question was an environmental concern, a tax on the import of nuclear waste, shadowing the government's obviously skewed interests. Yet, the fourth question, a proposed radical departure from the norm, stirred a vehemence of unparalleled proportions. This question suggested a profound shift in the political power structure, a direct election of the president by the public, a notion starkly opposing the long-standing practices rooted in communism. This idea, a direct threat to the political elites, particularly to Prime Minister Mečiar, mysteriously disappeared from the ballots, revealing the government's continued commitment to a corrupt and uncertain political framework. Erasure was linked back to one man, Interior Minister Gustav Krajčí, a close ally of Mečiar. This act was nothing short of a strategic political diversion, reminiscent of the deceptive political practices of the communist era. Krajčí found himself engrossed in a political turmoil amid accusations of premeditated omitting of the question to preserve an unsteady and corrupt status quo. This machination led to Mikuláš Dzurinda, a determined opposition figure, emerging to challenge the government's dubious actions. The leader of the Slovak Democratic Coalition, he expressed his vehement opposition to the government's obvious manipulation of arguing that it perpetuated the same corruption and that had been inherited from the communist past. Dzurinda boldly decried Krajči's surreptitious move, demanding transparency and accountability in the political process, a brave stance against the murky political heritage. His strenuous opposition resonated broadly, rallying public support and emphasizing the historical significance of the referendum. The public outrage was a blazing political forever, marking the 1997 referendum as a crucial turning point in the public's faith in the government. The scandal that shrouded the referendum was tremendous, leaving a profound, indelible mark on Slovakia's political landscape, a stark reminder of the enduring influence of a single decision and the dubious and corrupt legacy of the communist. The troubling sequence of events surrounding the disappearance of the question gave birth to a political storm, with an alarmingly low turnout at the votes, a scant 9.53% of qualified voters. The questionable legitimacy of the referendum was brought to light due to the bleak voter turnout. The aftermath was colossal, and Krajči, the man orchestrating the manipulation, found himself dealing with a legal backlash. Politically, this fiasco dealt a severe blow to the already damaged reputation of Mečiar's government, sowing the seeds for its downfall in the upcoming 1998 elections. The dubious and corrupt nature of the government, a lingering legacy from the era of communism, fueled public distrust and dissatisfaction. Dzurinda, a vehement critic of Mečiar's rule, was relentless in his censure of the referendum manipulation. His fiery comments portrayed the incident as a blatant disregard for democratic ideals. His prominent role in mobilizing public sentiment against the Mečiar administration represented his fierce opposition to corruption. His plea for truthfulness and accountability within the government struck a chord with the public, propelling his rise to power. The 1997 referendum has etched a permanent mark on Slovak politics, with its reverberations still evident today. It highlighted the pressing need for integrity and accountability in governance, and stood as a stark reminder of the importance of democratic principles. It laid bare the power of public sentiment, demonstrating that interference with democratic processes can stir political instability. Dzurinda's ascension to power in the aftermath of this chaos signaled the beginning of a new era of accountable governance, a stark contrast to the corrupt tendencies inherited from the communist past of the previous regime. The 1997 Slovak Referendum acts as a haunting fable of violence and struggle in the pursuit of democratic principles, interwoven with the lingering shadow of communist-era corruption. It serves as a sobering reminder of the steep price often demanded to uphold and maintain these tenets. Within this narrative, Dzurinda's significant role underscores not only the importance of brave leadership in traversing the unpredictable journey to democracy, but also the relentless challenge to overcome the deeply ingrained, systemic corruption bequeathed from the communist rule. It was not just a showcase of the power and potential of democracy, but rather a testament to the resilience engendered by struggle, sacrifice, and a commitment to purging the vestiges of a corrupt legacy. In the stormy year of 1998, a contentious figure began to emerge amidst the chaos: Mikuláš Dzurinda. Slovakia, struggling with the fallout of the 1997 referendum and the resulting political maelstrom, saw Dzurinda rise to power, hoisted up by waves of public dissatisfaction. Formerly an economist, Dzurinda, a figure mired in controversy, assumed control of a country still quaking from political instability, a nation seeking a leader who could cleanse its flag of the bloodstains. Tasked with the Herculean mission of not only rebuilding public faith in the government, but also handling the deeply ingrained corruption that was a troublesome inheritance from the communist era, Dzurinda's leadership was marred by numerous controversies and allegations of corruption. He helmed a government that professed dedication to the principles of transparency, accountability, and democracy, yet his administration was frequently embroiled in scandals, casting a shadow over the reforms they claimed to implement. The government under Dzurinda was constantly under for its attempts to rebuild public trust. Their progress towards a transparent and democratic administration often overshadowed by persistent allegations of corruption. Dzurinda's tenure, far from marking the start of a new era, instead served as a stark reminder of the immense challenges that strong leadership faces when confronted with adversity and systemic corruption. Under Dzurinda's leadership, the Slovak nation continued to grapple with political instability. His economic policies, while aimed at stabilizing the nation's finances, were met with mixed reactions. Pointed out the impact of his stringent austerity measures on the common masses, within public spending leading to job losses and increased economic disparity. Moreover, despite promises of reform, the privatization of state-owned enterprises led to allegations of crony capitalism. Critics allege that privatization often benefited those with political connections at the expense of the wider public, casting a shadow over his tenure. The economic challenges faced by the Slovak people during Dzurinda's leadership were significant. Unemployment skyrocketed, living standards for many declined. Yet, amidst these hardships, the Slovak economy showed signs of recovery and growth. Despite Dzurinda's efforts to restore public trust and rebuild the Slovak political landscape, allegations of corruption and cronyism persisted. His tenure, while marked by political reform and transparency, bore the scars of economic hardship. This period of Dzurinda's leadership serves as a reminder of the complexities of political stability and economic prosperity. Dzurinda's leadership, despite making significant economic progress, was embroiled in controversy. His administration was riddled with allegations of corruption and favoritism, which gradually came to the surface. His government was under fire for suspicious privatization transactions and supposed misuse of public resources, all of which painted an image of an administration deeply embroiled in graft and favoritism. The Slovakian populace, wearied by economic difficulties and a yearning for openness, started expressing their dissatisfaction. The later part of Dzurinda's reign was marked by public rallies, protests, and outcries. Calls for accountability amplified, reverberating through the Slovakian parliament premises and throughout the country. These incidents cast a massive and ominous shadow over Dzurinda's image and Slovakia's political environment. This once hopeful leader, hailed as a symbol of reform and transparency, was now under close examination, with every move being questioned. These controversies serve as a harsh warning that even leaders with the most promise can succumb to power's traps, emphasizing that the pursuit of economic stability should never overshadow the need for political honesty and accountability. Even as controversies gathered storm domestically, Slovakia was making major inroads on the global platform. The voyage of this nation towards NATO membership, however, was an intricately woven web of stratagems. Dzurinda's administration, determined to cement Slovakia's position in the global community, launched a campaign of calculated political maneuvering. This master plan involved winning over allies, making enticing promises, and even allegedly twisting the nation's policies to fit the mold of NATO's membership criteria. One of the most controversial tactics used was the manipulation of the national referendum to secure Slovakia's NATO membership. The government, it was alleged, engaged in a wide of strategies to influence the outcome. This included media campaigns designed to sway public opinion towards NATO, the use of pressure from high-ranking officials, and even alleged fraud in the vote-counting process. Key players in these tactics were individuals from the upper echelons of the Dzurinda administration, as well as influential figures from NATO member states, keen on extending the alliance's sphere of influence. External forces, too, had a hand in this geopolitical chess match. Powerful countries with a vested interest in expanding NATO's reach were suspected of playing a role in influencing Slovakia's decision to join the alliance. This contentious involvement of external powers evoked a polarized response from the Slovakian public. While many celebrated membership as a significant milestone, others viewed it as a capitulation of national sovereignty, a decision coerced rather than predicated on what was best for Slovakia. Public dissent and protests marked chapter as the nation grappled with the ramifications of aligning with the potent military alliance. Thus, Slovakia's NATO membership, though a historic landmark, was tainted by controversy and manipulation, casting a long, dark shadow over this pivotal moment in the nation's history. The maneuvering of Slovakia into NATO by exploiting a national referendum, serves as yet another complex and often controversial chapter in the narrative of Dzurinda's leadership. In the face of such complex political maneuverings, it becomes crucial to question and investigate every action. As citizens, it is our responsibility to not just passively accept the decisions made by our leaders, but to actively query their motives and methods. Slovakia's entry into NATO, shrouded in controversy and allegations of manipulation, is a prime example of a situation that demands thorough investigation and transparency. International courts play a vital role in ensuring such accountability. They serve as the guardians of justice, providing a platform where controversies can be examined impartially and judiciously. The allegations surrounding Slovakia's NATO membership, if proven, could potentially lead to a lawsuit at an international court. This would not only help in uncovering the truth, but also serve as a deterrent for future leaders contemplating similar tactics. The potential for a lawsuit to be established at an international court is not just about seeking justice for past actions. It is about setting a precedent for the future. It is about ensuring that the leaders of tomorrow understand that their actions will be scrutinized, and they will be held accountable for their decisions. As we navigate the intricate web of politics, it is essential to remember that every action should be scrutinized and every decision held accountable. The pursuit of power should never eclipse the pursuit of truth. And as we delve deeper into the story of Slovakia's political journey, we must remember to question, to probe, and to demand transparency and accountability. Because in the end, it is through these efforts that we can hope to build a more just and equitable society. Looking back at the 1997 referendum, it's impossible to ignore one glaring issue: the dysfunctional voting system. At the time, Slovakia was operating under an electoral process that was far from perfect. The system was riddled with inconsistencies and loopholes that made it susceptible to manipulation. This had profound effects on the referendum's outcome, as the system's flaws were exploited to sway the results in favor of certain political factions. The voting process was characterized by a lack of transparency and accountability, with allegations of ballot stuffing and vote rigging rampant. Furthermore, the lack of clear guidelines and regulations made it difficult for any disputes to be resolved in an impartial and fair manner. The outcome of the referendum was, therefore, not necessarily a reflection of the will of the people, but rather the result of a deeply flawed system. The repercussions of this dysfunctional voting system were far-reaching, affecting not just the referendum, but also the broader political landscape in Slovakia. It underscored the urgent need for reform in the country's electoral process. Only with fair and transparent elections can a democracy truly function, and the voices of the people be genuinely heard. The flawed voting system during the 1997 referendum serves as a stark reminder of the importance of a robust and transparent electoral process in a democratic society. It is a testament to the fact that in order for democracy to thrive, the electoral process must be beyond reproach, ensuring that every vote counts and every voice is heard.